Welcome to Dodgers Dogs as part of the Dodgers Daily Network. Casey Porter here, joined as I am each and every Tuesday and Thursday by one Mr. Mark Watkins. Boy, Mark, we had walk-offs, we had grand slams, we had bunts. We had just about a little bit of everything in that beautiful stadium behind you last night.
Yeah, absolutely. That was definitely an exciting night. A lot happened last night. A lot of things to like, I think, about that game, and definitely probably the most exciting game of the year, I think, so far. So
it was very, very, very exciting. So I know you like the smaller ball type of offense, at least being able to incorporate it into your style of offense, at least part of it. So it was nice to see that beautiful bunt by Miguel Rojas, and it was nice to see the Dodgers generate some runs.
Yeah, absolutely. Going way back, I was a huge fan of Brett Butler way back in the day. When I played, I tried to pattern my game after him, and so it was always exciting. Like a bunt was almost as exciting as a home run for me to see that happen. And obviously the Dodgers have a tradition of some really good players. Going back to Maury Wills, who was phenomenal at that, the small ball aspect. And baseball's kind of lost. It's kind of a lost art in baseball these days. Guys don't even know how to bunt, which is unfortunate. And Kike was able to get one down last night, surprisingly. But I think I heard that it'd been a really long time since he had even attempted a bunt. But a lot of these guys, you see them, when they even try to do it now, they really struggle to get it down. It's something that I don't even know if it's being taught in Little League and high school now, but it's definitely not focused on in the major league level. Obviously they're all about launch angle and hitting home runs, and I miss that old part of the game, that and speed, which is coming back. It seems like they're starting to steal bases again, which is nice. It is. One of the things that it's been prevalent in the game is the pinch hitting situation, although the fact it's kind of interesting with all the modern day analytics, and they show you that pinch hitting is like the hardest thing in the world to do, because hitting, first of all, is the hardest thing to do. Then when you're having to come in cold off the bench and you're not in a group, that makes it just substantially harder. So there's just not very many people on earth that can come in and be very good as pinch hitters. So I thought it was interesting in the one game this year that Tommy Edman doesn't start, he comes through with the walk-off on performing maybe the hardest thing in all sport, pinch hitting. Yeah, exactly. I mean, he continued his I don't think it's going to last him being the MVP of the team, but he continued his MVP run, basically, in my mind, because he came through in such a clutch situation. And as you mentioned, it's pinch hitting. It's tough coming off the bench. And the announcers were mentioning earlier that he didn't know what to do with himself because it's the first game he hadn't started all year. So
he was probably that guy that was wearing the manager out. Like, dude, I've got to put you in the starting lineup every day because I can't deal with you for 3 hours on the bench.
It's they have that old term. It's used in basketball out of gym rat. A guy's just constantly in the gym, constantly playing. He strikes me as that type of guy where he's just always wanting to be on the field contributing somehow, or when he's not playing, he's practicing and that kind of thing. You love to see that. So it was great to see him come off and get that hit.
I had a kid about 20 years ago, and he had played just like Tommy Edman. He was my best player, shortstop, pitcher, catches, caught some, that kind of deal. And I gave him a day off. It was like July, and it was like 105, and he had pitched and caught in a doubleheader the day before. And he had so much energy by about the fifth inning, I just said, you know what, man, this is the last time you're ever going to sit on the bench because I can't watch this. I can't listen. You're driving me insane. That's exactly who Tommy Edman reminds me of. But how about Teo Hernandez and the fireworks again, home runs in 3 games in a row? I like the 2-strike approach where he goes right center in the opposite field. He's done a little bit of that. So Teo Hernandez, wow, coming up big again.
Yeah, definitely. Teoscar Hernandez. I mean, speaking of MVP, I mean, if it's not Edman, then it's probably him up to this point. Obviously, Mookie and Ohtani really haven't gotten on track yet. But and Freddie's been hitting pretty well, but they really are not obviously hitting to their full potential yet. They will, and one of those guys will probably end up being being the team MVP by the end of the season, and the league MVP, maybe Ohtani again. Yeah. We'll see. But Teo's been amazing, and we mentioned in the last podcast how he's hitting the home runs, but when it becomes a clutch situation, he's also shortening up and using the whole field and getting some big hits that way. So it's great to see him continue to have success.
Of course, when you build a 4-0 lead and you have Dustin May, who's really throwing through 5 innings, and it just kind of looks like you're going to cruise to the finish line, then Coach Holt says it all the time. Hey, they may be the Marlins and they may not be very good. They still have professional baseball players. They have players that can play this game at an elite level. And so I'll be darned, the 5 spots. So it looked like it was going to be an easy game. Next thing you know, you're back in a grinder.
Exactly. Yeah, it definitely looked like the Dodgers were going to run away with it. And I guess this season, nothing seems to come easy. But, they were up 5-0. And then all of a sudden, boom, just the guy comes off. Speaking of pinch hits, the guy comes off and hits a pinch hit grand slam, which really was kind of shocking. But the Dodgers, to their credit, they clawed their way back and they figured out a way to win. But yeah, you can't take any team lightly because, as you mentioned, they're all major league hitters and they've all really paid their dues and came up and they know how to hit. So, yeah.
Yeah, the pinch hitter that hit the grand slam for the Marlins was Dane Myers, and I'll tell you, we mentioned that pinch hitting is maybe the hardest thing to do in sport because hitting's the hardest thing to do in sport. Then pinch hitting adds an element of difficulty to that. But I'll tell you what made it easier for him is Anthony Bonda got down 2-0, then he got down 3-1, and he made a very difficult thing to do, pinch hitting, a lot easier by getting behind Dane Myers and really just kind of having to serve up just a really kind of a room service fastball. So, I mean, hey, I love Anthony Bonda. I think he's one of the most valuable contracts in the major leagues. But just disappointing that he got behind twice. You know, he threw the strike after 2. It's like, okay, let's climb back in. Then he threw another ball. Now we're in a hitter's count again. So I just really felt like he let the Marlins and Dane Myers off the hook by not throwing strikes.
Yeah, he's been inconsistent obviously this year, and he's struggled with his command a little bit. He really, towards the second half of last year, he was money. He really got in a groove, and this year so far, he just doesn't have that command that he needs. And once you start walking hitters or falling behind in counts, that's kind of like a death knell for a pitcher. So, I hope he can turn it around soon and get back on track because they need him.
Especially for him. I mean, his fastball is okay. I mean, it's nothing to sneeze at or anything, but it's not good enough to where he can just fall behind the count and say, well, here it is, big boy. It's coming right down the hooter. Let's see if you can do anything with it. He can't do that. His stuff is not that dominant. But I'll tell you who has been dominating. How about the Rook, Andy Pages? Him and Teo have become best buds. You can tell by that, and I think that's really, it's kind of that. So Andy's very hard on himself. And he really takes failure very difficultly. I've mentioned this a couple different times. I think that's why he's streaky, because he wears his emotions on the sleeve from that perspective. So that happy-go-lucky, positive outlook on life that Teo has, the mentality, the attitude that Dodgers fans fell in love with Teo about. He's joking around the dugout. He's fun. I think that positive, infectious energy has meant all the world to an Andy Pages type guy who's under an extremely large microscope. He's way too hard on himself. He's puckered up, he is. And then here you have Teo, just like, hey, dude, just be Andy Pages, right? I think that relationship's been big.
Yeah, that's a good point. Teo, obviously, as you mentioned, the fans love his positive energy, and I think he's had a great effect on a lot of players. But for a young player like Andy Pages, who maybe doesn't have all the confidence that he should yet, in the game, we've talked about it, it's such a mental game, and for young players to come up, they have to have some success early on in order to maintain that confidence and gain that confidence. And it's easy playing baseball. you mentioned the part about hitting. It's the hardest thing to do, but it's just easy to get inside your own head and start having doubts and thinking about, well, maybe I should try this or try that. And I think that's where Chris Taylor is, honestly, unfortunately, because he keeps trying new things and it's not working. And some fans don't realize it. It's really difficult. It's really difficult to hit well on a consistent basis. I mean, guys like Freddie Freeman and those type of guys just really amaze me how they're able to do it so consistently.
Make it look easy.
Pa he's been off to a fantastic run here, and it's great to see, because I mean, if you add him to that offense, the other guys are going to come around, and it's going to be a phenomenal offense by the end of the year if he keeps hitting the way he has been.
Yeah, these guys make a lot of money. I mean, $13 million or whatever Max Muncy's making, that's a lot of money. So to call a spade is totally fair. These guys are not off limits in any way, shape, or form in terms of, hey, the dude's not producing. We need Max Muncy to be better than what he is. We love Max Muncy, but we can't have this version of Max Muncy all year long. At some point, this has to change. All of that narrative is fair. The dumping and piling on and the stupidity that fans go overboard with that we saw the other day, that's not fair. You can't make it personal like that. So if you just leave it as criticism over the way they're playing, wonderful. That's all fair game. Once you make it personal, you've gone overboard. So I say that to say Max Muncy has not been the Max Muncy we've hoped we were going to get in 2025. That is a fair statement. It is accurate. If anybody else watches that, I would challenge them to say something different, okay? So I say that to say it was great to see him get back on the beam last night, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I'm a huge Max Muncy fan. I think he's just like a real grinder, on the Dodgers, and he's a big part of what they do. And so I knew he'd come around, and it's good to see him get a couple of hits. And I feel like he's been close. You could kind of see him coming around a little bit, having better at bats, having more patience. He's probably the most patient Dodger hitter when it comes to taking walks. His on-base percentage is always pretty high, and he had that streak last year in the playoffs where he was 12 straight on-base appearances. But it's good to see him come around. They need him too, and I think hopefully this will be the start of something good for him.
Yeah, and Dustin May, I've heard, hey, it's Dave over managing, it's this and that. The dude was cruising. I mean, he had thrown 71 pitches going into the sixth inning. And then here's another deal. I mean, we've whined and complained that, matter of fact, Coach Barakoff said it point blank on our live show Sunday night. Our bullpen cannot continue to cover this amount of innings, over 162. So when you have a starting pitcher that's at 71 pitches and he's cruising like Dustin May was, with the amount of work the bullpen's had to put in, not only is that the right decision, it's the only decision to send Dustin May back out there and try to ride him as long as you can, A, because Dustin May's good and he's been cruising and he was gaining confidence, and B, just that's the short-term picture of it. So that's the moment decision. But the overall picture of it is you got to do it for your bullpen as well. So I don't understand any of the criticism of any of the Dodgers fans about sending Dustin May back out there. Hey, it doesn't always work, but we have hindsight. But he was cruising coming into that sixth inning.
Yeah, absolutely. They, as you mentioned, their bullpen has really been taxed lately, and they can't continue on this pace unless they keep cycling through and adding guys. They obviously added the pitcher from the Yankees who'd had a really good first appearance. But their bullpen just can't handle that type of load, and it was absolutely the right decision to send May back out. They need all the innings they can out of the starters right now.
And it's always, there's no scientific process, that like the Dodgers, these analytical programs and organizations, analytics define things. They make your decisions less just kind of by the hip and more scientific, because they give you an overall, this is your odds of this outcome happening over a longer period of time. There is none of that when it comes to pulling pitchers. It's the most criticized thing of all time because there's no scientific evidence to it other than by the time the fans are bitching and moaning about it, they already know the results.
Right. Yeah. And I noticed, like, being in online groups, social media and such, it's kind of like you can't win for losing. You leave them in and they get hit, and then they complain about that. And you take them out and they're like, well, why'd you take them out so early? It's like the manager just can't win.
They can't. Yeah.
So
not in that situation.
Right.
Bottom line is Anthony Bunt has got to come out and not get behind 3-1 and 2-0 to the pinch hitter there, Dane Myers. That's the bottom line. I mean, that goes, and I love Anthony Bunt. Again, I'm going to say it again. I think he's one of the most valuable contracts in baseball. The bottom line is Dustin May, it was a no-brainer to send him back out there. Anthony Bunt has got to do better than getting behind the count like that. To me, that's just the absolute bottom line. Okay, so I really liked, I mentioned in the Friday loss, 3-0, how Dave, even though it's still close, you had a lot of people, why aren't we throwing this guy? Why aren't we throwing that guy, this and that? Well, Dave was leveraging his A-team bullpen arms on Friday to make sure they were available for the games coming up so you don't lose like 3 or 4 in a row. Well, I'll be darned. And this is also why it's big that you have an offensive explosion every now and then, because that 92 win yesterday made it to where your bullpen arms, since they didn't throw Friday, they didn't throw on Sunday, now you have your bullpen arms available last night and then probably tonight too. So there you go. There is that big picture again that managers have to manage to, that Dave has done a wonderful job here in the last 4 or 5 days, making sure that Kirby Yates and Evan Phillips and Tanner Scott have been available for the games that have been winnable that they've been needed for.
That's a great point. A lot of people don't realize or don't think about that aspect of the game. They just think about what's going on in the game, and managers have to plan ahead, for the week ahead, what's coming up, and saving that bullpen. And Dave Roberts has done a really good job of that. And sometimes it's almost like you have to sacrifice the current game. You'll leave a guy in to take a little bit of a beating, even though he doesn't have his best stuff, just to save the bullpen for future games. And they have to plan ahead. That's a big part of what a manager has to do.
Yeah. I love the fact that Ohtani was using left center field gap. You love the fact that he looked more patient. So tell us what you think about Ohtani. We had a comment, by the way, before we get into that. It's like he has to reprove himself every year, but you have to do that when you make as much money as he makes, right?
Yeah, that's true. Ohtani, it's good to see him showing more patience. I think that could be the start of him getting back in the groove. A lot of times you see that with a hitter when they start taking more pitches or close pitches that are just off the plate instead of swinging up, those pitches that are an inch or two off the plate. They're being more patient, kind of like Max Muncy does. And you could see that last night with Ohtani, where he's just starting to be more patient. I think that could portend good things for him coming into the upcoming games. So it looked like hopefully he'll go on another tear and be the Ohtani that we know he can be. So
yeah. Great to see that Ben Kasparius is going to get another shot at the starting role. And for just context for Dodgers fans out there, Ben Kasparius has always been a starter, going all the way back to the University of Connecticut, going back to his time all the way through the minor league system. So this is a guy that has, and right now, he's hitting 98, 99 with his fastball, and the spin's well over 20. It's like 2,600 at times, okay?
Right.
And that's not even his centerpiece. The centerpiece is his slider. So for that fact, I've said, hey, he can easily go through a lineup a couple of times, even 3 times, even if he's only a 3-pitch pitcher, because he has 2 centerpiece type pitches and then a third pitch that he can also land in for a strike whenever he needs to. So I think this is a very well-deserved, and the least surprising thing that I've ever heard, that Ben Kasparius is going to get another shot to be a starter.
It's tough for him because they have so many starters, and they have to because of all the injuries that they suffer with starters. But it's great to see him get a shot. He's a young guy who's really, as we talked about confidence, I think he has a lot of confidence right now. And I saw a chart the other day that showed that, talking about their rating like pitcher stuff across the major leagues, and he was
stuff
right
plus,
he was right at the very top, as you mentioned, his spin rate, and he's been phenomenal. It's kind of hard to project how good he can be, but he seems to be getting better and better, which is encouraging. And they can obviously use him as a starter right now with Snell and Glasnow having trouble staying healthy. So it's great. It's good to see these young guys. I'm always excited to see young guys. That's why I like to follow the minor leagues too. But I like to see these young guys get their shot.
So I mean, it's kind of like that argument, that conversation we had about, we already know the results about either whether to leave your pitcher in, take him out, who to put in. We already know the results, so it's hindsight. It's always 2020.
Right.
So I think there's a little bit of hindsight to the Tyler. I think whenever they signed Tyler Glasnow to the extension, everybody's like, well, the extension's the only reason why that trade made sense. Well, now that we've seen what he's actually always been, which is injury prone, now you're seeing these same people go, well, man, that extension was stupid, right? And now the Blake Snell deal, hey, I've got no problems. You want to criticize that deal, what the Dodgers did. I don't know enough about Blake Snell. I said at the time, I trust the Dodgers organization. They're the best in the world. The front office is. So whatever they say, I'm good with. I think there's room for criticism on the Blake Snell part of it. But get out of here on the Tyler Glasnow deal. There was nobody on earth that wasn't excited about signing Tyler Glasnow that extension, in my opinion.
I was super excited about it. I mean, anytime you acquire a player like that, it has to be exciting. It does concern you, the injury part of it.
Yes.
It concerned me both with him and Snell, their injury histories, but it's just unfortunately a part of Major League Baseball today. I know the Dodgers are doing a big study right now on how to prevent pitcher injuries, because they may have been affected more than any other team last year, even though they still were able to win the World Series. But if they can get these guys healthy and have them healthy come playoff time, down the stretch and for playoff time, it'll be well worth it. If they don't even pitch a full season, and sometimes I think it's going to be the norm of the future for a pitcher to pitch half a season, for the teams that can afford to have them do that. And Kershaw and Ohtani, I'm in no rush to get them back. I just as soon have them be strong for the second half of the season in the playoffs. Kershaw, in past years, he's obviously been criticized for his playoff performance, but it's because he was gassed by the time the playoffs rolled around.
Great point.
Yeah, and there are pitchers who seem to defy that. Like I remember Madison Bumgarner. He was still always money in the playoffs. The guy was just a horse. But some pitchers, I mean, they wear down by the end of the season, and they just are not as effective in the playoffs, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Is CT3 the forgotten man, or is he just kind of is what he is? Should he be the forgotten man, or where were you at there?
It's tough because I love CT3. He's basically like a 5-tool player. Well, the hitting part of obviously is not there, hitting consistently these days, but it's tough to see because he is one of my favorite Dodgers, just because of all he can do, and he's had a lot of clutch plays through the years. But he's definitely right, at the very end of the bench. And some people suggested the Dodgers are just trying to get him his 10 years in because this is his 10th year in baseball. But I think regardless, even if he was not on the Dodgers, some team would give him a shot. Mm-hmm. But he really hasn't played much at all this year. And maybe at some point they'll have an injury and he'll get in there and he'll show his worth again. I hope so. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't hope for an injury, but I hope he's able to contribute at some point.
Yeah. Okay, so the last LA Dodger topic, then we're going to get to our down the farm, which I know you have a lot of great points to make about a lot of our prospects, which I'm super excited about. Tony Gonsolin, I've gotten to see him at Oklahoma City. His last outing, I said it with Evan Phillips. The Dodgers had a set of benchmarks. He hit them. Same with Tony Gonsolin. That was my last tweet on him. I would imagine they had a set of benchmarks. Here they are. He hit them all. He's coming back pretty soon. Those two are pretty obvious. So are you excited about Tony Gonsolin? Nervous? Where are you at there?
I'm definitely excited about it. They need him badly. We touched on it last week. I was kind of wondering if they were going to bring him up last week, and it could have helped. But as you mentioned, they have benchmarks, and who knows what they are. So they maybe hadn't achieved a couple of those, or maybe they didn't want him to have stressful innings at that point just yet. So it's great to have him back. They obviously really need him in the rotation right now with the injuries that they're going through, and he's been pitching really well in the minor leagues. So I'm excited to see what he can do tomorrow. I guess it's tomorrow already.
100%. Okay. So, Mark, are you ready to take a trip down the farm?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so first topic of conversation. I'm going to go ahead and flip this over to my virtual camera so you can see what the viewers are seeing here. So one thing that you're super excited about, Mark, is the amount of speed that the Dodgers have acquired in their minor league system. It's been super exciting, hasn't it?
It has been. It seems like there's a renewed focus on that. And as I mentioned earlier, across the major leagues, you looked at the Cubs, and they have a lot of guys on that team that are very athletic, starting with Pete Armstrong Crow Armstrong, or I can't remember.
Pete Crow Armstrong, PCA.
Pete Crow Armstrong, yeah. But that guy is super athletic, and I feel like a lot across the major leagues, there's kind of a renewed emphasis on the speed and athleticism in the game, which is exciting for me to see. But the Dodgers, it's they're really stocking up on these kind of guys, and the ones that you have mentioned there. Recently, in the last couple of draft picks, Kellen Lindsey was their number 1 draft pick last year, and Kendall George, I believe, was the year before that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was.
And then they've gotten some international players like Eduardo Quintero, who is looking really good in Rancho Cucamonga. I can't wait to get out and see them, actually. I haven't been out to a game yet, but I will be soon, I'm sure. So there's a lot of guys. And then they acquired Esteury Ruiz, who is really fast. He had, I think, over 50 stolen bases in the major league level. So it's great to have him in the minor leagues as depth in case there's an injury, or they can call him up maybe when the rosters expand and use him as a pinch runner later in the year.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so I know that the next player that you wanted to get to was this young man right here. If there's audio to that, let me go ahead and turn the audio off and push play there and get the loop on. So this is Dalton Rushing, man. Tell us what you think and what are you excited about with the obvious things, but I know you wanted to talk about Dalton Rushing.
Yeah, he's coming around again. It's almost unfortunate the Dodgers. It's unfortunate and unfortunate they don't have a spot for him right now, because I feel like he's ready to come up and contribute. And he's. I mean, I've seen him play. I've been out to some games for Rancho when he was there, and the ball just comes off his bat differently, and he has such a disciplined approach at the plate.
Yes.
He's just fun to watch. I met him when I went out to spring training a couple of years ago, and he just seems like a great kid, so I'm definitely rooting for him to succeed. Yeah,
and he has done that. So 294 average, on-base percentage of .398. He has a .386 batting average on balls in play, so that tells you how hard he hits the ball, and a WRC plus of 127. And he's been dinged up a couple of times. I know I've gotten a lot of questions about him from time to time about, let me actually go ahead and minimize that just for a second so I can bring this back over here and get my notes and put the video back up on the board so you can see it of Dalton Rushing. And so, he has had a very, very, very good year, obviously. Dalton Rushing, I know the next guy you want to talk about was one of the guys we talked about with the speed, and I've been getting a lot of questions about Esteury Ruiz. This guy can really run, and he is hitting very, very well. Esteury Ruiz. Matter of fact, before you dive into him, let me get into what he's doing. So Esteury Ruiz, 306 OPS, 879. On-base percentage of .422, and he is 13 for 13 in stolen bases, which leads the Pacific Coast League in stolen bases. And by the way, it's going to take like somewhere around a 3.1 between a pitcher and catcher combo to get the ball to second base to throw this guy out. So this guy's off to a great start.
Absolutely, he's exciting to watch. He just has blazing speed, and he's someone that could definitely help them at some point during the seasons, as I mentioned, if they maybe call him up late in the year to pinch run for different guys. He might even find himself on the playoff roster in that role. But it's good to see him. The Dodgers have a history of turning some guys around, making little tweaks to their swing or whatever it may be, and hopefully they're able to have an impact on him where he can become a better player than he has been in the past.
Mm-hmm. And another guy who has been a better player this year, than he certainly was last year. Jose Ramos. I know you like this guy. You wanted to talk about him. So far, Jose Ramos, a walk rate of 10%. Strikeout rate's gone up a couple of percentage points since we talked about him last, up to 25%. Let's not get any higher than 25. Let's keep it right there. The batting average, 261. He leads the Texas League in home runs with I believe it's 8. It's 7 or 8, but he leads it by 2 over the next person, and he has a WRC plus of 154. So Jose Ramos has been really good.
He's been phenomenal, and he's another guy I saw play at Rancho, and he hit some bombs. He's got some great raw power, and you see him right there going the opposite way, which is great to see. He's not just a dead pull hitter, and I was going to mention that earlier about Dalton Rushing, how he uses the whole field. It's great to see him, hitting things to left, and when you have a young hitter like Ramos who can go the opposite way like that really helps a lot. And there he goes again. So,
yeah, and he's okay with that. A lot of guys that can hit the ball as far as Jose Ramos. There's another one that can hit the ball as far as Jose Ramos. A lot of times, they want to be dead pulled because they feel like that's their way to the major leagues and that's their way to their big paycheck. And I think all the strikeouts last year forced Jose Ramos into, okay, well, I have to hit the ball opposite field. He's bought into it, and he's doing it. Another young man that is maybe the best player, has been the best player in the system this year. Of course, I think Ryan Ward, Mike Sirota had good cases. Jose Ramos, who we talked about, would also have a good case. But Zaire Hope had his second 4-hit game of the day on Sunday, 8 multi-hit games. So here's Zaire Hope. Zaire Hope leads the Midwest League in hits at 26. He's second in RBIs at 21. He's tied for 4th in the Midwest League in doubles with 7. He's 6th in the Midwest League in home runs with 4. He's 8th in batting average at 310 and 3rd in the Midwest League in on-base plus slugging, OPS 943. I'm out of breath talking about Zaire Hope.
Yeah, I mean, what else can he do? He's obviously a 5-tool player, and he was really impressive in spring training. But looking back at that trade they traded Michael Bush, and people were like, "What the heck? They got these 2 minor leaguers I never heard of." I was one. Yeah, and between him and Jackson Ferris, I mean, it's looking like it could be a phenomenal trade for the Dodgers. They always seem to pull those trades off. Mike Sirota, who we might get to later, is another guy who they obviously traded Gavin Lux for, which is another head scratcher to me. But Zaire Hope, I don't know what else he can do. I would expect that he'll probably be up at Tulsa at some point this year, maybe by midseason.
You would have to think so. So let's talk about Mike Sirota. You just mentioned him a minute ago. 3 hits. I believe this on Saturday. He made a really nice shoestring catch in center field. He is fast. Then he had 3 more hits on Sunday. So he's 6 for his last 10 with 2 doubles and a home run, 2 RBIs, 385 on the season. Batting average 385. He's better than single A pitching. But the problem is you have Kendall George, you've got Logan, you've got Cole Myers, you've got Zaire Hope, and you've got Josue de Paula in your outfield at Great Lakes. So you're full. Because Cole Myers is a great 4th outfielder. And so you want all these guys to get as many at-bats as you can. So right now that place is in Rancho for Mike Sirota. But no doubt about it, he's better than single-A pitching. OPS 1159. And so Mike Sirota, man, he has been very impressive. He was injured early on, but been very impressive.
Yeah, we were talking about speed and athleticism earlier, and he's one of those guys that definitely fits the bill there. And maybe if Zaire Hope gets called up to Tulsa, he'll take Zaire Hope's spot later in the year because he, as you mentioned, he seems to be he's overmatching the Rancho Cucamonga level, single A level. So. I should say lower single A because obviously Great Lakes would be too, but I think he's ready. He's ready for the next level and doing it all. Somebody compared his, I saw like a side-by-side approach with him and Paul Molitor. Was that you that posted that?
Yeah, that was me. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It was pretty similar, wasn't it?
It was very similar, yeah. And I mean, if he could come anywhere close to Paul Molitor, that would be huge.
Absolutely. Okay, and another guy that you need to know about, put him in your Rolodex. I'm telling you, Carson Hobbs. Wait till you see this breaking ball that he throws. This is a guy that's going to be somewhere. He's going to be a guy that can touch 100, probably around the 95, 96. Huge breaking ball. so smart that just advanced sequencing, and then he executes that sequencing. This is a guy you probably never heard of. He's out of Sanford. There's that huge breaking ball. He is really freaking good. Carson Hobbs, I'm telling you, put him in your Rolodex.
Right. He looks like he can definitely be a fast mover. Anybody who can throw close to 100 miles an hour and have that type of curveball, wow. I could definitely see him being a fast mover in the organization and maybe being up on the Dodgers within a couple of years.
Yeah. Carson Hobbs, again, another young man. Man, and he's a wonderful young man. He's somebody that you always feel better after you talk to him than you did before. So I am super high on him. The last young man we're going to talk about tonight, another guy that you probably never heard of. This is Sammy Sanchez. Hey, I put out a post the other day about all the walks in the organization, starting with Los Angeles, like the AA Tulsa leads the league, Oklahoma City leads the league, Midwest, or the Great Lakes Loons lead the league, and Midwest, whatever that post was. I can't remember the exact details. Too many walks. But the one level of the Dodgers organization that usually walks the most amount of people is Rancho, and they have all these young pitchers, most of them international, like Sean Paul Lignon, Sammy Sanchez, Christian Zazueta, that are really professional strike throwers. So Sammy Sanchez, who you're seeing here from Venezuela, 19 years old, here's an example. His last start, 5 innings, 6 hits, no runs, 2 strikeouts, which isn't overpowering in 6 innings. How about this? 5 innings, no walks. I mean, that's what I really love. These guys are professional executors.
That's great to see. Definitely, looks like he has a really good arsenal of pitches, and for young pitchers like that, a lot of times one of the last things to come along is their command. But that was encouraging for him to see him do that, because with his stuff, if he can command it well, he could be definitely a plus pitcher for them.
Yeah, so he sits 91 to 94. He's been up to 97, and like you see here, he has the good slider you just saw there. And you're talking about all the strikes he throws. Here you go, right here. On the year, he's walked 4 hitters between 4 starts, and that's in 17 innings. So it's good to see Sammy Sanchez and all the young pitchers in the Dodgers organization throw so many strikes. So as I bring it back, Mark, hey, any final thoughts here before we get out of here?
Yeah, I want to touch on James Outman. He looks like he's heated up a little bit, so that's really good to see. We talked about the game being mental earlier, and I think with James, that's been a big part of it for him, because he had some really good success early on, and then just started backsliding a little bit, regressing. And I know he changed his approach up in spring training, like towards the end of spring training, in fact, where he changed his swing path a little bit, and it looks like he's adjusting to it. So hopefully that'll mean good things for him in the future as he's starting to get used to that. And then also we talked about the Dodgers possibly going on a little run, with the Pirates and the Marlins, and games coming up. And it looks like the hitters are starting to heat up a little bit. So just hoping they can get on a run. And sometimes a game like they had last night will spur them on to greater things. So hoping that's the case.
100%. Great job, Mark. Can't wait to talk to you on Thursday. So, hey, for all you Dodgers dogs out there, you know that you are absolutely the best. So for Mark Watkins, I am Casey Porter, and as always, it's a great day to be a Dodger.